Hi, gonna try and talk a bit close to my mic in this video. Should be fine now, the volume. So, what I'm gonna go over is, man, there are so many similarities between 2007 and 2008. I know I went over this in my previous videos quite briefly as well, but I'm gonna get more in depth into it in this one. It's actually crazy how many similarities we have. The first thing I wanna start off with is we're gonna get back into them to money supply increasing and whatnot, and why the arguments that are being made currently with, oh, they printed so much money since COVID is, I mean, it's kind of like a bullshit argument. The first thing I want to do is I want to go to the 2-year yield, okay? And I want to see what happened here to the 2-year yield in 2007, 2006, I guess late '05 till late '07. You can see for about 750 days we went sideways here, right? After going up, then consolidating, then down only in the 2-year yield. This is what the Fed funds rate follows, right? Overnight lending rate from the central banks, or from the Fed in this case. And then we had a rise here as well. And then we have a collapse here in the 2-year yield. Now, this consolidation period has been about 750 days, and we know what happened here in late 2007. That's when the Fed started to cut rates, right? September 18th, 2007, from 5.25 down to 4.75. And what happened at the same time? The unemployment rate was rising. As you can see here in orange, the unemployment rate started to rise as the 2-year yield was collapsing. Just like the unemployment rate is rising here as the 2-year yield is collapsing. So the 2-year yield is doing exactly what it did in '06, '07, right before '08, along with the unemployment rate. Alright. Now let's look at the Fed funds rate. What has this been doing? Well, it went sideways here for about 400 days. Just like by the time they cut the interest rates here, it's gonna have gone sideways. It will have gone sideways here for about 400 days as well. September 18th is the date, right, where they're gonna cut. It will be about 400 days here as well. So the path is of about equal length, which we can see here if we go to this right here. They cut here in September 2007 after pausing from June. That's a 15-month pause. Just like here, we had a pause from July 2023 until the cut in September of this year. All right, so what was the unemployment rate doing here? Interesting. In the unemployment rate in blue in this case. Unemployment is rising as they're cutting interest rates. They're going to be cutting interest rates. I wonder why. Unemployment is going up. Do we have any evidence to suggest that maybe they're a bit worried about the labor market? Where is it? Um, Fed officials were ready to cut interest in July. They're worried about the labor market, right? Ah, who would have guessed? This looks the same. Americans' recession signals are flashing red. Don't believe them. 2007 jobs report confirms soft landing. Warren Buffett is selling Bank of America. Maybe you should buy it. This is too funny, bro. This is way too funny. But anyways, you can see the correlations here, right? Between the unemployment rate and or in this case, the inverse correlation, right? And how they're cutting because of a rise in the unemployment rate. So you might go, well, they're just gonna cut and everything's gonna be fine. Really? When they started cutting here, did the blue line stop going up? No. In fact, it continued rising for 2.5 years. All right, what about when they cut over here? The first rate cut is actually in September, so it'll be right about here. I'll go to monthly. September they did the first rate cut. Did that prevent the unemployment rate from going up? No, it went up for 2 years and 1 month, so 25 months. All right, so they're going to be cutting here, right? And everyone's like, well, that's surely going to save the labor market, right? When they cut in September. That's not what history tells us. In fact, it tells us that we should expect a rise probably for the next 2 years. So the unemployment rate should peak probably in late 2026. Where? I think it's going to go up somewhere top here. Why? It's just what history tells us. Again, if we go back and look at the picture of where we are with the rise in unemployment rate right now, and we just overlay this right here. Let's remove all of this. Let's have the blue line go up here. Why am I saying this? Because look what happened in every other example here. When we got to month 20 of the yield curve inversion, did the unemployment rate stop going up here? Let's actually go to the unemployment rate chart to make this more clean. Unemployment rate. All right. When we were right here, change in unemployment rate from the first inversion of the 10-year 3-month spread. Here's all the previous cycles, which one are following the most? The orange line, right? Okay, so we are right there, right? Look what happened in all of these previous cycles. The unemployment rate moves. So it's like saying that the unemployment rate is going to bottom right here in the summer of 2024 is like saying that it's going to stop going up right here in April of 2008. And then you still had to experience that. Well, again, my bet is that U3 goes to 8 to 12% and U6 goes to 15 to 20%. So we're talking unemployment rate going here. But the difference is that right here, it took a long time for the unemployment rate to bleed back down. So people had to sell assets. Here, they got their jobs back instantly. What's the difference? Well, this is a business cycle. This is the economy going to shit. This was the artificial shutdown, right? So it's not the same type of unemployment rate spike. So people compare this to COVID. Oh, they're going to jump in like they're in COVID. It's not the same. It's the same as 2007. And you can see all the correlations here, right? And if we just do this, we go to the Nikkei. What was Nikkei doing? In 2007? It peaked here on the 9th of July 2007, just like we peaked here on the 8th of July 2024. All right. The S&P did what? The S&P in orange made a higher high. S&P higher high. Nikkei, Japanese stock market lower high. Going into the first rate cut. Japanese stock market so far lower high. S&P higher high. That's the same as what happened during the GFC. So the 2-year yield looks the same. The yield curve looks the same with unemployment rates, right? We can clearly see that right here. Actually, I have it right here, I guess. The yield curve inverts is the warning sign. And I've been saying this for a long time, the longest time. People go like, oh, but you've been calling for a recession for 2 years. No, again, you're just not paying attention, right? Like if you pay attention, it's one thing, right? I'll give an example of that. I wrote this a year and a half ago. Inverted yield curve. Look very closely. Things are okay in the gray zone. Re-steepening of the yield curve is when things are bad, red zone. Okay, so yeah, they're not paying attention, whoever says that. The inversion of the yield curve, things are fine. Unemployment rate is low. Stock market's enjoying, right? When the yield curve re-steepens, unemployment rate goes up. The red line sells off. That's the stock market. Yield curve up, unemployment rate up. Stock market down. Yield curve up, unemployment rate up. Stock market down. Yield curve up, unemployment rate up. Stock market down. Yield curve up, unemployment rate up. Why would this time be different? And then you might say, yeah, but we can have rising unemployment this time, and it's not going to be bad. The stock market won't crash. Okay, show me a time. There are 12 recessions since 1948. Show me a time when the unemployment rate rises and the stock market does not go down. When it rises this much.
That's not a thing. So if you want to live in a fantasy and say that everything is fine, that's perfectly fine. So you can see the correlations here between what's happening here with the unemployment rate, the yield curve, and the stock market. I showed you the 2-year yield. I showed you the Nikkei, what it's doing in right now compared to 2007. Then if I overlay what's happening right now in the DXY compared to 2007, what was that doing from here in June 2007? It was bleeding down until March 2008. Well, this has been bleeding down now here since June 2024, right? And it's doing pretty much the exact same thing, is it not? All right, so then the question becomes, what is the stock market doing? Where is this taken from? I'm not saying that's going to happen. We did do something similar right here. And everyone's looking at this right here, including me. But the difference now is that now we have other things aligning, not just the chart. And it's not a prediction, oh, this is what's going to happen, because it looked like that here and then they did this instead, right? The reason why we're looking at this is because this is similar, not just from a chart perspective, but everything is similar. This right here, this market structure, is what happened in 2007 right here. Is this portion from July '06 until a rate cut here in September of 2007. Fed funds rate. What is that? That's the pause. Right? You can clearly see it. That's the pause right here until the first rate cut. Until the first rate cut. All right. Pause since July of 2023. This pause will have been 14 months by the time they cut rates. Back then it was 15 months. June '06 till September '07. July 2023 until September 2024. Then if we just overlay the stock market, it looks similar. Then you might go, oh, but it can't go that low, back down to the COVID lows, because we know they printed so much money, right? Here, if I mouse over this, you're going to see the valuation here. The M2 money supply was 15.4 trillion. Here, it's 21 trillion, okay? If we just go to the chart here, we do from 15.4 to 21. That is about a 36% increase, right? So 36% increase in anti-money supply. You're telling me you can't take out the COVID lows because we printed so much money since then. All right, let's look at what happened back then. In 2009, we took out the 2002 lows from 6.5 years prior, the July 2002 lows by March 2009, nearly 7 years later. But the money supply here had gone from, if I mouse over this again, 5.6 trillion to 8.3. Okay, let's do the same thing again then. 5.5, so let's do from 550 up to 830. 830, 51% increase. Let's round it up to 50%. If 50% increase in the money supply, yet we still took out the lows and we raised all gains going back 13 years, since 1996. So tell me again about how we can take out the COVID lows. You might say, yeah, but it's not going to play out like that. I agree with you. It's not going to play out exactly like that. But do you see the similarities? The 2-year yield is doing the same thing. The Nikkei index is doing the same thing. The DXY is doing the same thing. The unemployment rate is doing the same thing. We're getting the rate cut on the exact same date after a pause that's of equivalent length of the pause that we had back then. The rate hiking cycle, the pause and the cutting is going to look the exact same as what we had back then. And we see that right here. When did things start to deteriorate? Right here. Okay. So then let's see, what do we need for something like this to happen? A rise in unemployment rate, right? All right. Do we have that? We do indeed. Do we have rising unemployment? Absolutely. Just like we had over here. That led to this. Rising unemployment rate. Could that lead to this? Well, what does history tell us based on where we are right now? What is the one thing that predicted this rise in unemployment rate to begin with? The yield curve. So let's go back to this picture. From this point, months from the inversion of the 10-year 3-month, what happened between month 20 and say 31, 2, 3, 4? Say month 34. So 14 months from now. That puts you in October, November of 2025. Well, the unemployment rate doubled. It doubled here during this period, during those 14 months. All right, so if we're going to have a doubling in unemployment rate, the unemployment rate will look like, and again, just to go back to the picture, it's not just one example, it's every example. You can see all of these cycles, right? And here's the dates of the cycles. What would a doubling in unemployment rate look like? It would look like this. Does that make sense? Absolutely. And everything aligns with the timing of everything else. So you might say, well, it can't go down that much, 58%. I did that in 2008, and we're mirroring the global financial crisis the most. You can see we're following the orange path the most. Right? A jobs report confirms soft landing, March 2007. Okay. Yeah, that was a soft landing, right? That was people were enjoying the soft landing back then, man. Americans recession signals are flashing. I don't believe them. Like, ah, yeah, back then with the housing bubble. What is this? Since 1942, we had many recessions, economic cycles, and only one nominal home price crash cycle. That's it. Yeah, I wonder why. Maybe because that was the only bubble we had prior to now. Just it's funny. People don't think, right? So I'm not saying we'll play out exactly like that. It's following this right now, but we did something similar here. So be careful with following a fractal and expecting it to play out entirely. All I'm saying is everything is the same. The 2-year yield is doing the same thing. The Nikkei is doing the same thing. The DXY is doing the same thing. The yield curve is doing the same thing, the unemployment rate is doing the same thing, the length of the hiking cycle, the pause, the cuts, everything is aligning, the exact same dates, the structure is aligning. It's there's just a lot of things that are pointing towards this. So I think there's a good chance in a year from now we're looking at the stock market being down 50%. I mean, before you say that's impossible, after they cut rates in '07, 13 months later in October '08, the market was down 50%. So we could be looking at a scenario where we're sitting in September, October of 2025, and the unemployment rate will have doubled and the stock market is down 50% easily. That's all. Enjoy.